So a big thanks to Wizards for giving me early access to Lost Caverns of Ixalan on Arena. The set hits Arena next week, but in the meantime, here's a gnome themed brew that I've been playing with today. Hey everyone, Hex here, and today I'm playing with gnomes on Arena. I never thought I'd say that, but before I start, don't forget to like, and if you haven't yet, subscribe below. It massively helps out, and I want to thank you all for the support that you give this channel. But onto this deck, and today I'm a kind of Boros artifact deck with a whole bunch of new cards. I'll start though with my gnome synergies in Thousand Moons Smithy. It's a 4-cost legendary artifact that says when it ETBs, create a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts or creatures that you control. So this is our plan, loads of little gnomes to equal some massive ones with this card. But there is more to this card because amazingly, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may tap 5 untapped artifacts that you control and transform it into Barracks of the 1000. It's a land that taps for white, but if you cast any artifact or creature using this mana, you make another massive gnome. It is the card that simply gets out of hand and just keeps giving and giving and giving. Opponents have a tough time dealing with it, and when this starts, there is no stopping us. The other card I want to mention reminds me of Adalin a little bit. It's Anim Pakal. It's a 3-cost 1/2 Boros human soldier that when you attack with one or more non-gnome creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on Anim Pakal and create X 1/1 gnome artifact creature tokens tapped and attacking, where X is the amount of +1/+1 counters on it. There's so much text to all these new cards, but these are the main cards that we are building our deck around today. So other new cards we have are Market Gnomes. They're 1-cost 0/3s that when they die you gain a life and draw a card. Perfectly good turn 1 plays, especially in any aggro meta. We've got Tinker's Tote. These are 3-cost artifacts that when they enter, they create 2 1/1 artifact gnomes, further boosting our synergies. Plus you can also sack it for 1 white to gain 3 life if needed. We've got Dusk Reliquary. It's a 1-cost artifact that says as an additional cost to cast, sacrifice an artifact or creature. When it ETBs, exile target artifact or creature opponent controls until Dusk Rose leaves the battlefield, and it has Ward 2. This is a decent removal in a deck like ours and can deal with big threats that we might be facing. We've got Spring-Loaded Sawblades. They are 2-cost flashy artifacts that when they ETB does 5 damage to target tap creature opponent controls, and for 4 you can craft with another artifact. This means exile an artifact that you control, pay 4, and then this card becomes Blade Wheel Chariots. It's a 5/5 vehicle that crews for just 1 mana, or tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to have it become a 5/5 artifact creature until end of turn. And lastly, new card wise, we have Dowsing Device. I've been very surprised with this card today. It's excellent. It's a 2-cost artifact that when it or another artifact ETBs, up to 1 target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn and haste. If you then control 4 or more artifacts, transform it into Geode Grotto. This is a land that taps for red, but for 3 mana you can give any target creature +X/+0, where X is the amount of artifacts you control, and haste until end of turn. A haste giver in your mana base is so sweet and so hard for your opponents to interact with. The rest of the deck are pretty standard artifact synergy cards. We have Michiko's Reign of Truth for massive potential damage, Dragonspark Reactor to help close out any board stalls. Don't forget this triggers when any artifact ETBs, so Tinker's Tote would put 3 counters on it alone. We've got Patchwork Automaton, an obvious choice for a deck like this, but beware this only triggers when you cast an artifact. Skrelv for some protection, Regal Bunnicorn as we have so many permanents, and finally Still Seraph to give some evasion and much needed life gain against aggro decks. I've got 22 lands and that is the deck. So with 10 sets to choose from, there are hundreds of other options you can try in a deck like this, and the meta in early access is always a little bit strange. But trying out these new cards has shown me there's definitely artifact synergies all throughout Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and I can't wait to try out more. Mono white gnomes or Azorius artifacts seem the next obvious step. If you, however, have any thoughts on this deck or the new Ixalan set, you can let me know in the comments below. You can find me over on Twitter, and as always, thank you for watching. Alright, on the play, and apart from our land, this hand seems okay. Got a couple of tap lands here, but I guess we have a good opportunity here to get the Restless Bivouac onto the battlefield. And we draw a Market Gnome, opponent with Gruul, so probably indicates a dinosaur deck. I've played an awful lot of those today. Once they get going, they're quite difficult to deal with. But we'll see how we get on. Opponent with a Intrepid Paleontologist. And I'm going to play my Anim Pakal here. So this is a 1-2. When you attack with a non-gnome creature, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and you create X gnomes, where X is the amount of counters on Anim Pakal. But we have the Bunnicorn in our hand, so I'm pretty happy with where we are. The Bunnicorn and Anim Pakal work pretty well. Opponent with a Topiary Stomper. Tapped their 2-2. So they don't actually have any blockers. So I'm just going to go for the bunny here. And Dowsing Device is going to give the bunny haste. So we get to attack here with our bunny and Anim Pakal. And we're going to create a 1/1 gnome, which also increases the power of the bunny. Plus the gnome triggers the Dowsing Dagger. Sorry, Dowsing Device. And yeah, that is a lot of damage to our opponent. They're already down to 10. And we've got Skrelv that we can use to hopefully give our Bunnicorn unblockable. Opponent with a Trumpeting Carnosaur. When it ETBs, discover 5. Okay. So they get to basically cascade, or you can put it in your hand if you don't want to play it. Cast it, sorry. We find a Patchwork Automaton. But I think we've got lethal here, haven't we? The Stomper doesn't block. So we'll just dump our hand onto the battlefield. And as long as we just keep pumping up this bunny, we should be good. Yeah, so the bunny's going to become an 8-power creature here, but the counters on Anim Pakal here are going to ensure that 2 more permanents enter the battlefield on our side. So line of text on Anim Pakal, which I didn't notice till quite late, was if any non-gnome creature attacks, it doesn't actually have to be the Anim Pakal here. And I hope I'm saying that card name right, but given the Bunnicorn, protection from red is more than enough here to kill our opponent. Alright, on the play. And we have a Thousand Moon Smithy in my hand, which means I'm keeping this hand. I cannot wait to play around with this card. I think it is so sweet. I like the fact you can blink it if you want to. That will definitely be another deck I'll be looking at making soon. But there's a lot of blinkable and flickerable targets in this new set. Opponent with an Epicure, and we played our gnome into our automaton. Would have been nice to do it the other way around, but it's playing the most mana efficient play there. And opponent with only Cult Anvil. Okay, so up against an Anvil deck, but they do have blue in their mana base. So no idea what shenanigans we will be facing here. This is within like the first hour of early access, so apart from Dinosaurs, which I've seen quite a lot of, there's a lot of cards that I've never seen before. But we'll play Tinker's Tote here. Cast Trigger puts a counter on the automaton. Unfortunately, the 1/1s don't trigger it, but they're going to be used as fuel to make a massive gnome next turn with Thousand Moons Smithy. Opponent with a Mycosynth Gardens. Probably a card we could think about putting in a deck like this, as it copies an artifact, but our Smithy here is legendary. Opponent with Pakal. Okay, I really have no idea if I'm saying these right. I'll put this card up on the screen. But there's some synergies there with the Anvil, which is why they have it in their deck. But we get to play our Thousand Moon Smithy here, and that is a 7/7 gnome. And I guess we'll attack with our automaton. So the Thousand Moon Smithy says at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, tap 5. You may tap 5 untapped artifacts you control to turn it into, to transform it into a land that when you cast a creature or artifact using that particular land, you get to create another massive gnome. And then that's going to be our game plan. opponent with a Tithing Blade. So in ETBs, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Okay, or we'll just sack one of our 1/1s. Blade can also be crafted, which means you can pay 5, craft it with another creature, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you drain your opponent for 1. So maybe they've got that card that doubles life loss. I'll put that on the screen if I remember. But yeah, there is our Barracks of the Thousand. And we'll play our Market Gnome. This will trigger our Automaton, but it's tapped anyway. But we can attack with a 7/7 now. I guess they can just keep blocking with their 1/1s. We need a Skrelv or one of our Angels to give flying. But we can just keep smashing away, seeing where we get to. The Spring-Loaded Sawblades have Flash. They do 5 damage to target tapped creature, so I don't really care about these 1/1s. If they'd attacked with their 1/5, I would have absolutely played one of our Sawblades. And it is Terror Tide, so all creatures get -X until end of turn, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. They have 4 in their graveyard, but this does mean we can actually flash out our Sawblades, take care of one of the 1/1s, which don't go to the graveyard. But most importantly, it puts another artifact on our battlefield, which pumps the Automaton to get it out of range of their board wipe. So although it looks like we've got 2 1/1s here, they are certainly not 1/1s. And we do have a Skrelv to hopefully try and see out this game. If they're playing board wipes, we need to make sure we keep our artifacts as high as possible. But here is our land. We're going to tap now to cast our Tinker's Tote. Load of triggers here. Going to create a 6/6. Tinker's Tote creates 3 artifacts. So these 6/6 are suddenly going to become 9/9s. And as long as we just keep hitting attack, we should be good. Could cast the Skrelv. I don't really want to put all my eggs in a basket in case they remove everything again. We should be good with our land though. So my piece of advice after today's early games is, if you have a way that you can put a Field of Ruin into your mana base, I would go for it. There are some pretty decent lands all of a sudden that you might want to deal with. Opponent with another Tithing Blade. Have to sack another 1/1. So I quite like the Tithing Blades, but in a deck like ours, I'm just sacrificing 1/1s, which don't really do too much. And I think opponent's dead now, because we're going to be attacking with 3 creatures next turn that are above 3. And it doesn't really matter how they block. So this was a pretty nice game for us. They did draw a lot of cards. They did try and attempt to wipe the board though, but our gnomes were way too big for them. And I'll just play out a artifact here to pump up our gnomes even more. Play the Tinker's Tote to put even more power onto our board. And we will kill our opponent with 2 12/12 gnomes. So on the play, and this is a perfectly keepable hand. We'll definitely keep this one, and we'll play our tap land first. So what I've noticed today is the fact that there are just so many cards to pick from when making decks. They didn't rotate the sets as early as they normally do, meaning it's just the meta is so diverse. I know the meta in early access is slightly strange, but I'm enjoying the fact that when I just typed artifacts in Boros, there were just pages and pages and pages of ideas and things to think about. So really excited for the new set to hit Arena properly next week. But in the meantime, we get to attack our opponent with our 2/2 Automaton. And opponent looks like they are on Jund. They did play the Iron Crag. That was a card I did think about putting in this deck, but Didn't think it actually did enough, even though it does ramp you slightly. We'll drop Skrelv purely to boost up our Automaton and our Dowsing Device here. Doesn't really matter what we target. We could just target the Skrelv there to give it haste, but it makes no difference because it only gives +1/+0. But opponent down to 11, they do have an awful lot of mana though, so how much do they have? They got 7 mana. It could be anything they play now. I really don't want a board wipe. But we do have our land online, so any sort of low-cost creature that we have, we are going to be able to pump it quite a lot. Opponent with Breach the Multiverse, so that's what their game plan is. They find a tortoise and a hare. Okay. Probably not their best two finds, to be honest. But this is where the Steel Seraph's great, because we can just play this, and then we can start giving our Automaton some evasion. And hopefully find a way just to see out this game. They don't have the 7 mana available now, unless they find another land to play this turn. So even an Atali or maybe another Breach isn't necessarily going to win them the game here. They need to deal with the Automaton, because I guess we could use Skrelv if we need to. And we have another Steel Seraph if they want to deal with that. But they might be holding Go for the Throat. That might be their removal of choice here, and it doesn't actually hit any of our creatures. But they play another Blossoming Tortoise here. And I don't know how they're going to get out of this one. They can't target our Automaton, it has Wall 2. Glimpse the core to find a forest, and I think that should be game over here. We have several different ways to win next turn. But I'm going to use my lands to do it, because I've been wanting to do this all game. So we get to target the Automaton. It makes it an 11-5, and then the Steel Seraph can give it flying. And that one is a win, which I'm pretty happy against a Breach the Multiverse deck. Alright, on the play. One land. I don't know about that one. Duskrose Reliquary is not the best card to have in our opening hand. 2 lands is better, and I think we'll put the Duskrose to the bottom. We need to sacrifice an artifact or creature when casting that, and I don't really want to do that right now, even though the Market Gnomes is a good card to sacrifice. But I want to get a little bit more aggressive, and we'll drop the Gnome here, even though it triggers the Automaton and the Dragonspark Reactor. Just want to find that 3rd land. 3rd land means we can cast the Tinker's Tote, which will help put 3 counters on our reactor. And opponent looks like they're on Gruul, so probably another dinosaur deck. And there's Kumano. Okay. Can't get away from that card. To be fine at Michiko. So for the fact we've only got 2 mana, our hand isn't actually that bad at all. We'll definitely cast this Dragonspark Reactor, as this is a good way to finish off the game if the opponent gums up the board with dinosaurs. And we'll drop the opponent to 18. So I do like the dinosaur deck. I think I'm going to play that a bit later on. At the moment, I've just noticed it's just big dinosaurs, 4 or 5 cost dinosaurs just swamping the board. But I'm going to try and see if there's any kind of cute synergies there out there that I can find. I like the idea of mono green dinosaurs as well. Getting to Galta. I think that sounds pretty sweet. But in the meantime, we are up against a Huatli, Poet of Unity. I will pop that card onto the screen. Pretty sweet card. And opponent has an Etching of Kumano onto the battlefield. So this doesn't look like a dinosaur deck, to be honest. I'm just going to block. They might have shenanigans going on here, but yeah, Monstrous Rage. Alright, so it looks like they're just Gruul Aggro. So I don't care if my creature dies. I guess it didn't trigger as the etchings on the battlefield, but now we know what we're up against. Important that we find a way to get Steel Seraph onto the battlefield to gain some life back. So if they have a lightning strike, they can't actually target our automaton. And they definitely have some instant speed spell up there. It's going to give our creature lifelink. Let them play out whatever they've got. We're going to gain 6 life, which is pretty annoying for kind of aggro decks. So they have another Monstrous Rage. I don't care about this. They've used their Monstrous Rage as a defensive tactic just to kill our automaton. And they lost their creature as well. We gained 6 life. And next turn we've got a Michiko transforming itself, plus another Steel Seraph if we need it. So I don't mind where we are. We have lots of life gain going on here. Opponent gets in there with their 3-3. Okay, well that is a big no block. We go down to 18, but they're down to 2 cards left. And there's Picnic Ruiner, okay. So I'm kind of glad we've blocked where we have. I'm also kind of glad that they did block earlier themselves. Just going to cast the Tinker's Tote here. This will mean that next turn, potentially we have lethal with our Dragonspark Reactor. Wish we had a Dowsing here, because then we could have given our 6/6 haste. But 3/3 lifelink is going to be pretty annoying for our opponent. I do like playing against sort of mono red and Gruul Aggro decks when you have life gain in your deck. Decks are normally optimized for to do about 20 damage, so if you can make them have to do 26, 27 damage, it can be pretty tough for them. I'm going to just block in case there's any shenanigans I need to worry about. I'm pretty sure I've got lethal next turn. Our Dragonspark Reactor for 4 mana is doing 5 damage in itself. Plus we have 7 on board here. Didn't have to block with the gnomes there, but I don't 100% know what cards are in the set, so I was unsure if they were going to be able to do something crazy with their Swift Spear, trigger the Picnic Ruiner, etc. So playing it safe, but we have the opponent down to 2, and we can just fire off our reactor here for the final 4 damage. And we'll take out the Picnic Ruiner 2. So pretty nice win here against a aggro deck, but the life gain certainly was the key aspect there. Alright, on the play. I feel like I've been on the play quite a lot today. Our hand looks perfectly nice. We will play our Skrelv on turn 1. We will say go. Okay, there's our Thousand Moon Smithy, so pretty liking where we are. I want to hold open the Sawblades, I think, just in case they have a haster, and because of that I'm going to just attack with Skrelv. Obviously it can't block. So there is an argument to take red out of this deck if you wanted to and go mono white, which is something I am absolutely considering. Not playing this particular card and going a little bit more mid-range as opposed to our sort of aggro strategy. I also like the idea of this Anim Pakal with the Devilish Valet. I think that would work pretty nice with our Tinker's Tote. So loads of synergies coming out of this deck, I've noticed. Opponent with a Paleontologist, so up against Dinosaurs, Hulking Raptor. So this is a 5/3 Ward 2, and at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add 2 green mana. So they do have potentially 6 mana next turn. Playing the Sawblades here to take out their Mana Dork. I could have, I guess, played the Dusk Rose Reliquary. to take out this 5/3. It does have Ward 2, so I don't know. I don't know if this is the right thing or the wrong thing, but every card I seem to be playing against at the moment is a surprise. But taking out their mana dork seems perfectly reasonable. They do have 6 mana though. Here comes It's Quinth, firstborn of Gishseth. When ETBs, you may pay 2 for another target dinosaur to fight one of your creatures. And here comes a Belligerent Yearling. So that is a 3/2, but can take the power of another dinosaur that ETBs until end of turn if it wants. But this is a time to play a 5/5. I'm just going to sit back slightly, see what they do. They have so much mana and power available. That is a Trumpeting Carnosaur. So this is a 7/6 Trampler. When it ETBs, discover 5. Okay, we look like we are in a bad situation. They find Palani's Hatcher, okay. That creates 2 0-1s. And then at the beginning of combat, they can turn an egg into a 3/3. I think that's how that works. They'll sacrifice an egg to create a 3/3. And yeah, this has been an absolute trouncing. Just shows how explosive the dinosaur deck is when it gets going. I don't think there's any way we can block to save ourselves. I'll just save as much damage as I possibly can. I know these have trample, but I don't think there's much we can do here. This is bound to be a good game here. We were just absolutely swamped and just didn't have any removal in our hand to deal with their threats. Alright, on the play. Okay, but yeah, I mean, this is a keepable hand. I like the Bunnicorn with our Anim Pakal. So yeah, I kind of like where we are. Just hope we get a chance to play the Michiko for maximum value. Opponent with Merfolk. Okay, I'm really interested to see how this goes because I have a list of decks I want to make and Merfolk is actually at the top of that. So they got Cenote or Kenote Scout and they attack us with their 1/1. No, they don't. Okay. So they didn't play a spell. Probably got some flashy stuff or board wipe. Counter spells. And the automaton won't trigger if we attacked with it. It won't trigger Anim. Well, it will trigger Anim Pakal, but the automaton wouldn't become a 2/2 because we're not casting the artifact. But they play the Voldalian Hex Catcher. Okay. Which is a flashy 1/1. Lord effect on the other Merfolk. Okay, well, we've got a few different plays we've got here. Guess we'll just play our 0/3. Put a counter on the automaton. It resolves, fair enough. Maybe I should have played the Bunnicorn first, just in case they have a counterspell that I can pay for. They have Out of Air. Okay, that is a 4-cost counterspell that costs 2 less if it targets a creature. So are we just up against counterspells? Because that is quite an expensive counterspell to put in a deck unless you've got several. Go for Michiko now. And Spell Pierce. We will pay for that. Spell Pierce. Okay. So tempo style deck here against the Merfolk. Guess we aren't doing anything. But their counter spells are causing us a slight issue. Could do with some artifacts to cast because the cast trigger will still go through even though our spell might be countered, and that is Invasion of Segovia to make a couple of 1/1s. And we find a Skrelv. Okay, well, we'll play that. And if we have to pay for a counter spell, I will do that. And it survives. And now we'll play Michiko. And hopefully this goes through too, which it does. And I'm going to go for the... I think I'm going to go for Anim Pakal here. We will attack with this. It will create a 1-1. Opponent good games us. And that looks like a slightly premature scoop from our opponent, as I don't think they were dead by any means.